first video cast of What Makes a Porn Star, the Astro Guide.
Oh my gosh, we're going to learn a lot here.
Astro Guide, Astrolabe, get it? Where you're trying to put those together. Anyway, so this is my good friend Jesse, and I am your host, Porn Astro, and we are going to get into it with the porn actors, and we're going to get into all the shade, all the dirt, all the whatever, but we're going to do it from the astrological standpoint. We're even going to try to see if we can get someone to come here and be here with us. So, take it away, Jess.
So I'm so excited to be here with you today, Porn Astro. You know so much about astrology, and all we ever talk about is gay porn, so why not put the two of our favorite pastimes together and look at porn stars' astrological charts. You're the expert, and I'm like your average Joe. I think that astrology is really interesting and engaging, and I love the conversations that we get in, but I still got a lot to learn. So hopefully we can build a bridge to have a fun conversation around people who we find beautiful and like to admire and are interested in who they are as sexual beings in the world. So give us a little background on Porn Astro.
Hi, I'm Porn Astro. So how did I come to this? Well, I have been involved in astrology for more than 20 years, and I've been watching porn for probably more than that. You know, probably longer, like maybe almost twice as long as that. I mean, I don't want to give away my age or anything, but for quite a while. And but you know, within the last year, my interest in porn, I've always been really interested, but my porn interest really kind of has, I've had a lot of time on my hands because I've been working from home, and so I started getting involved with this website called Straight Up Gay Porn, and if you haven't gone to Straight Up Gay Porn, you absolutely should. It's excellent for the articles and for the writing, thank you, Zach, but my favorite part, and the part that saved my fucking life, was the comment section, and that's where you can find all the best GIFs and memes and all the best shade and the best reading and all the dirt about all the porn actors. Straight Up Gay Porn saved my life last year. So while I was kind of reading all this hilarious stuff that I was seeing on Straight Up Gay Porn, I thought, you know, I need to, and also a caveat, having done sex work myself, I realized that we're not a represented group. You know, this group of sex workers, and the chart, the astrological chart, can show so many different things. Why not focus on this group of sex workers, porn actors, and all of the people that work in adult entertainment, and see what kind of commonalities we can find and what kind of indicators in the chart we might see. So that's how I came to it.
It sure engages me getting interested in astrology to see it through the lens of sort of the sexual persona and what's influencing a person's desire to go into sex work. And so let's see, when we're going to talk about these porn actors, can you give me like a refresher course and maybe our audience a little intro to astrology? Give us the basics here.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really important that everybody understands and is able to, everybody understands and is able to do, kind of follow me so that everybody can have fun with this, and we can, and especially the porn actors themselves can have fun with it and understand what the hell I'm talking about. That's the most important thing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the screen so that we can look at the chart that we're going to work with today, which is the chart of Jeff Stryker. And then I will do my little primer with that chart. So I'm going to hit screen share. Oh, so that has to be, that's something, we don't have to record this. That's something that will have to be taken care of. I'll have to do this faster. And Jeff Stryker. See, if I'd been really smart, I would have had this open and you wouldn't have to be waiting for me to do this. But maybe you can see all the porn that's going by. All right, Jeff Stryker. All right.
Cool.
Okay, there we are. So hopefully you guys can see this, can see the screen. So can we make this a little bigger? Doesn't look like edit. No, doesn't look like we can. Okay, what happened? Where'd you go? No. All right.
What about the plus to the line?
Yes, yes, yes. There we go. All right. Well, we're not gonna record this one, so I'll do that again. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to look at is we're going to orient ourselves by direction. And this is east, so this little section, and I'll go through all the zodiac signs too in a second too. But this is east, this is west, the bottom is north, and the top is south. So I'm like our idea of what the North Pole would be.
So always on the chart is set up like that.
Always, every single chart, we start with the east. We start with the east in this left-hand corner, and the zodiac sign, all of these are zodiac signs. So the zodiac sign that's here, and you see this little line here, all of these lines are called cusps. And so that when people say, oh, I'm on the cusp, that's not really a real thing, but these are real cusps. All of these little lines are cusps. And the sign that is on this cusp right here at the eastern point is called the ascendant or rising sign. So when people say, I have Libra rising, or I have blah, blah, blah rising, that's what they mean. They mean that on the eastern point at the moment that I was born, this particular zodiac sign was rising over the horizon, like the sun rises over the horizon at sunrise. So that's the very first thing. So now, while we're looking at this chart, what we find is all the zodiac signs, and with this particular one, we're starting with Gemini, which is the twins. So this particular chart has Gemini rising because Gemini is on the eastern point. And so then we go from the bottom to the top. So there's Cancer, there's Leo, there's Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and back to Gemini. So all of these little areas are these little pie slices. I call this, they're called houses in astrology, but I'm going to refer to them as slices of life. And these different slices of life all represent different areas. Now, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was because astrology, especially the type of astrology that I study, is really capable of determining quite a few things. It could determine physical attractiveness, which is something that usually goes into being a porn actor. It can determine sexual behavior, not necessarily orientation, but behavior and cycles around sexual behavior, which of course is something that contributes to porn. It can indicate whether there's an exhibitionism in the chart, which tends to go with gay porn, with porn. And then there are all of the ancillary things that it can also show. Is there a predisposition to substance abuse? Has there been sexual abuse that has made them more predisposed to choosing porn as a career? And is there criminal activity that has maybe limited their ability to do other kinds of work, which also bring them to porn, and in many cases bring them back to porn because that's not an industry where that seems to matter as much. And then the final thing is, can we find the sex worker or prostitute in the chart? And so those are all of the different things, different ways that I kind of want to look at these different things. And so each of these pie slices is a different area of life. This first little slice right here is the slice called the first house, which is your body. So that's the slice of life there. Money is the second slice of life. Brothers and sisters and short journeys is your third slice of life. Your father and ancestors and families and homes is your fourth. Your children and creativity, but also romances and sex and fun and enjoyment is the fifth house, and that's going to be a slice that we're going to look at. We want to know about people's fifth house because what we find is that the fifth house is the house of pleasure. Porn is all about pleasure, so there should be some kind of fifth house emphasis with almost all of these porn actors, and we'll see if that's the case. It's definitely true. Sixth house, or the sixth slice, is illnesses. Seventh is marriage and relationships, so that's also something that we can look at. It also can have a bearing on sexual activity and partners. Eighth house is the house of death, but also the house of other people's money. So for you prostitutes that are using, or you escorts rather, I'm sorry to use that term, for you escorts that are using clients, that's other people, that's your clients' money. Ninth house, ninth slice is religion, but it's also higher education and long distance travel. 10th slice is career, reputation, renown, and fame. The 11th house is called the good spirit. It represents friends, that represents groups, but it also represents future gains and people that help us in our lives. And then the 12th, the very last, is called our bad spirit, and that represents our unknown enemies and our hidden enemies and our unseen, what is the term that I use? It's our undoing, our unseen undoing, our personal undoing.
So we'll be looking at that 12th house as well.
And it's also
people's levels of success in their career.
That's right. And we'll be also looking at the 12th house because it represents jails and incarceration. So we'll be looking at 12th house with porn actors who have possible criminal backgrounds and have backgrounds with have past time in jail. So that's what we're looking at. So that's one of the layers. So we got to two of the layers, right? We got the zodiac layer, we've got the pie slice layer, and then the most important thing to understand is that the zodiac signs are geographical locations of the planets. I will repeat that. The zodiac signs, so the outer ring of signs, they all are geographical locations of the planets. So the planets own those signs. So that's really important, because when we get to this particular slice of life, then we want to say, oh, wait, Libra is on that slice of life, and Venus is the ruler of Libra. Where is she? That's how we'll be doing quite a bit of the stuff that we're doing. Okay, so any questions, Jesse?
I think that's a pretty good rundown. We'll have to review that a couple times and to get our new listeners oriented.
Absolutely.
Figure out a way to make that process a weekly, very concise.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, the three wheels.
I thought that was really good, being somebody who's interested in astrology, having many readings by yourself, and looking at my chart for many, many years. Each time I get a little bit of study, I comprehend it a little bit more. So I do think it's a long-term process of studying and engaging and listening to the conversations around what somebody's chart, how it's influencing their life.
And without further ado, let's start.
My favorite porn actor growing up in my teenage years, anyways. It was at the height of his era.
Yeah, so I thought I would start by going back to our history a little bit. I didn't go way back to our history. Actually, next week may be when we go back to the kind of the inception of the gay porn industry, but with Al Parker. But this week we're going to start with who I call the king of the VHS porn era. King of the gay porn, king of gay porn in the VHS era, and that is Mr. Jeff Stryker. And so, now
this is his chart we're looking at.
And we are looking at it. We're looking at his chart, and I have to admit, Jeff, honey, I was not a fan, but I bow to you because of how well you have done, how well you did in your life in porn, and this is my paean to you and to your success in porn. So there are a few things that I'll always kind of look at first. First is, how do we see that this person is a physically attractive person? And can we come to some kind of description of what the person should look like?
So let's look at that. What is this for? So what's going on for Jeff?
So what does Jeff look like? What does Jeff look like? So what we come to. So the body is the first slice. So the body is the first house or slice, right? And we have Gemini here on that. So one of the things about Jeff Stryker is Jeff Stryker has a baby face. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury rules young people and children. And so basically the Mercury body is the twink body. in a lot of ways. It's skinny, it's a phoebe, it doesn't look totally, like all the hormones have hit it yet. But we have two different things when we're looking at the first any house. We're looking at what's the sign on the cusp, and then we're looking at who is the ruler. So in this case, it's Gemini, and that's ruled by Mercury. One of the interesting things here is that Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini, and Mercury is in Virgo. So generally, when planets are in signs they own, they operate well, and they create what we want to create. So this would create a very sturdy, healthy body that would be boyish looking. Now, one of the interesting things about Jeff Stryker is that he didn't actually look that boy. He had the boyish face, but the body was quite manly.
Except he was hairless. So in that sense, I would say he was really the dawn of the hairless porn actor age.
That's true, but he wasn't the typical twink that you would see with Mercury, right? And that's because of this.
And what is that?
Okay, so we not only look at whenever we're dealing with these houses, we look not only at the sign on the cusp and the sign that rules it, or the planet that rules, but we also look to see if there's any planet in there, because that will also describe what's going on.
And what do we see in his physical slice?
Here we see in the physical slice Mars. And what Mars will do is Mars, as a physical type, tends to make a short, kind of barrel-chested person, which is exactly what we have.
Wow.
Right? So we've got the baby face Mercury, and
the hairless body.
Hairless body and baby face, and we've got also the first house represents the head and the face. So there it is, the baby face Mercury with this short barrel-chested body. Now here's another thing, and one of the things I love the most. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But you all are gonna fucking love this, I promise. Okay, so now we figured out what makes him so cute. Now, what makes him a whore? Right? That's what makes him a porn star. So there are two.
And I think that those are two different questions. Really, we're looking at, or the first question here is, let's look at what makes him a porn star, because just in our other conversations, which everybody will hear, soon enough, there is a difference between being a whore and that being your path to porn stardom,
right?
And being fucking gorgeous and using
your physical beauty.
Yeah, using your physical beauty to advance.
That's such a fantastic point and distinction, Jesse. Thank you. And in this case, however, what we do have an interesting interesting inclinations that we can point to towards porn. So we've already got what makes you physically the right type for porn, right?
Sure.
So what makes you? So that's the first.
We're looking at Do
you look right? Right.
You got it.
Okay.
So we're going to see some action, some brightened activity in these areas.
That's right.
Are we on the porn star?
Yeah, always. The other thing, but remember, there's some butt ugly porn actors, right?
Right.
So we'll be able to see that. Yeah, exactly, right. So, the next thing we're going to look at, there are two things that I tend to find that kind of define a porn actor, not necessarily a sex worker, but a porn actor, and that's usually exhibitionism and or super high sex drive. So usually one of those two things are the...
And what slices are those?
Okay, so the slices that I'm talking about, actually, one is not a slice. However, the slice I'm talking about is this fifth slice of pleasure and enjoyment and sex and romance. And then if we were to make the exhibitionism a slice, the 10th slice, which is my public persona, my public self.
Yeah.
So that would be the slice that would kind of represent it. But also the sign Leo, because the sign Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun, is there ever a time in the sky that you can't see the sun during the day? Only when clouds are out. The sun thrives on visibility.
Yeah.
And so do Leos. Have you ever met anybody know a Leo? One of the things I say about Leos is every sentence starts with I and ends with me. Right? So that's one of those Leo things. So Leo has a tendency it'll do whatever it takes to keep the spotlight on it. So so there tends to be Leo generally, or there tends to be 10th house stuff, or there tends to be strong sun stuff that we'll find, which takes care of the exhibitionism, right? Because I know a lot of slutty people who, the minute the camera would get on them, they would lose their heart.
Right.
All right. And then the other thing.
Well, let's look at Jeff's right here.
Well,
what do we see?
Well, what we see. Well, actually, what we see first of all is the sun is in Leo.
The sun is in Leo.
Right. So
there you
since
go.
we're talking about exhibition,
It's a sunny day every day.
That's right.
This person.
And no clouds. That's right. No clouds means that I'm seeing all the time.
Yes.
So first of all, there's a strong need for visibility as a result of the sun being in Leo.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very strong. Secondly, now let's come to my issue of sexual inclination, which we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's either or. It's either that or it's the inclination. The other side of it is the fifth slice, and this is a very important. First of all, I want to make an important caveat about Jeff Stryker's chart. In Jeff Stryker's chart, every single one of the classical planets, except for one, is in a sign it either owns or is exalted in. And we'll talk about exaltation in a second. But that means that any house that that planet owns and any house that that planet is in is going to flourish. Jeff Stryker, in my opinion, if he had become a welder, he would have been king of the welders. If he had decided to become a dentist, he would have become the head of the ADA. Jeff Stryker could have done anything, could have become famous at anything he would have done. However, his inclination brought him to porn. And this is where this inclination is seated. Fifth house is the house of pleasure and amusements and sex and romance. Fifth house is ruled, Libra is on the cusp. Libra is one of the two signs that is ruled by Venus, who is the goddess of love. We are always going to be looking at Venus in the charts of these porn actors because Venus is the goddess of love. She rules coitus. She rules sex. Her area is the boudoir. Her area is the bedroom. Venus is the goddess of marriage and love and sex and all of those things that go with it. And the fifth house is called the house of her joy. The fifth house is Venus's joy. So here, Venus is not only in her own house, which makes her amorous, which makes her interested in relationships, which can make her codependent, to be honest, too. But it will make her, this is her where she is absolutely at her finest and at her strongest and happiest. So there's only one other sign where she would be stronger in this house, and that's Pisces. But she's not. And then there's another thing. There's this circle with the cross in it. That's called the part of fortune. And I sometimes use that as another ascendant. Another ascendant, which then the ascendant basically gives you the entire chart. It gives you the blueprint of the entire chart. So we use this as another ascendant, especially as relates to the work life. Makes some sense, doesn't it?
Right. And so the what'd you call it again?
Part of fortune.
The part of fortune is in the fourth slice.
Nope, it's in the fourth slice, but it's in Libra. It's in the same sign as Venus herself.
Sign as Venus.
So even though it's in the fourth slice, it belongs to the fifth, and it belongs to Venus. Venus is saying, "No, honey, you're mine."
Yeah.
So that means that even the work life, with the inclination, the amorous inclination. And I read a quote of Jeff Stryker's where he said, I'm attracted to all kinds of people. He says, I could be sitting next to somebody and all of a sudden be attracted. He's very bisexual is what he was saying. Here we have Gemini, the twins, the dual sign of Gemini on the ascendant. Mercury himself is in the dual sign of Virgo. And then we have this highly amorous person who can, and I bet, even though Jeff Stryker's, this is the last thing, I'm going to get to my last thing that I was going to kind of give the tell, but I bet you that Jeff Stryker, even though he probably has a strong temper, is the sweetest, nicest person. I imagine that, and also loves to be in a relationship, is probably relatively good at interior decorating, things of that nature. But really, I bet, and loves to have a good time. Might even be a stoner. But loves to have a good time. I know scratch the stoner thing. But one of the things that I was talking to Jesse about, because I wasn't a fan of Jeff Stryker's, was I felt he was so stiff and so masculine, and so unyielding as a persona. And interestingly enough, what we have is this thing between the Sun and Mars. And the Sun and Mars are both what we call hot and dry planets, very masculine, very aggressive, very assertive. So what he would be presenting would be this very aggressive, masculine, macho. For instance, Donald Trump has Mars on the ascendant, and he never smiles. And that's kind of the same thing with Jeff Stryker. Jeff Stryker never smiled as a porn actor. It was never soft, sweet kisses and hugs and I love you so much, baby. It was, yeah, get over here and suck this dick, right? So, and interestingly enough, the very last thing I want to say is one of Jeff Stryker's most famous films is a film called Power Tool. Power Tool. Mars is the power. Mercury works with tools. Mars is in Gemini. Mercury and Mars. That's your power tool, right there. Mm-hmm. And the whole everything that goes with it, the masculinity, the strength, the macho, all of that is Mars and is a part of this Mars thing. And we can even do something else interesting. So I do this thing where we count the chart out per year. And so we know that, let's see, he was born in 1962, so that every 12 years, 1970, this would be 1962, 1974, and 1986, which is the year it came out. So, see, so you see what I'm saying? So this is year 0, 1, 2, this takes us back to 12. That'll take us back to 24. This takes us to 24 is actually when he did it at 24. And so at 24 is when he does Power Tool, and this brings us to the Mars right there.
Isn't that amazing?
So that is our little exegesis of Jeff Stryker, and we get to see it wasn't a huge complicated thing at all, right? I could just kind of go into a few points and we could see why these things are. Now there's one other little thing I want to show, which is that usually with sex workers and porn actors, there's a connection between the ruler of the second slice, which is money, and the ruler of the fifth slice, which is pleasure and sexuality. In this particular case, the moon is the ruler of the second house. The moon is in Taurus, which is ruled by the ruler of the fifth.
Amazing. So he's a really good porn star to start with.
Right.
Because it is so predicated
all the
right there in the chart.
All the indicators are there. Everything. And also all of these planets being so strong means that it's obvious that he would advance. That anything that he would, that's why I'm making this point, that with Venus in the fifth, this is the 10th slice is the house of career and reputation. Jupiter is there in Pisces in his own sign, and that is the sign of Venus's exaltation. So that's her favorite sign of the sign she likes.
So they build on each other.
Exactly, and that means also that Venus has rulership in the 10th too. So not only is the part of fortune showing us that he would be choosing that as his path to fortune, but the 10th house is showing it through Venus's exaltation. And then Jupiter is saying he'll get to the top because he's in his own sign too.
I think it's so cool to look at these people who put themselves in the public eyes and being so interested in porn as well, to use this point of view to actually learn the greater practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Astrology. So that wraps it up for doing our chart. What is the 8th slice?
Oh, the 8th slice, indeed. So the 8th slice is this slice right here. And the 8th slice is where, what I should say is, remember how the first slice represented the body?
Yeah.
Well, every slice represents a member of the body or a part of the body. So does every part of the zodiac. So for instance, Gemini here represents the shoulders and the arms and the hands. And the first house represents the face and the head. throat, arms, shoulders, and hands, like Gemini. Stomach, lungs, and stomach. Fifth house represents the heart. Sixth house represents the intestines. Seventh house represents the lower back and the pelvis in that region. Eighth house represents the sex organs. The eighth slice represents the sex organs, the genitals, and the anus. And so I thought it would be fun to see if we could get an idea of what Jeff Stryker's cock might be like. I mean, it's not going to be able to describe it in exact detail, but it will be able to kind of give us an idea of whether it's formidable or not, right? So, in the eighth house, on the cusp of the eighth, is Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Now, one of the things for those of you who are aware of astrology or into astrology, I do not use outward planets to rule signs. So, for instance, a planet like Neptune or Pluto, or where's the other one? Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. I don't use those planets as rulers of signs. So I use the ancient rulerships, which means that Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces, and Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. Unlike, it would be Pluto for Scorpio, it would be Uranus for Aquarius, and it would be Neptune for Pisces. I don't use those. So in this case, we can see that a good reason that we don't, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. There Saturn is in his own sign. Now, one of the things that Saturn is called, or one of the terms that Saturn and Jupiter are called, they are called the superior planets. They are larger than the rest of the planets. They are slower. They have a stronger gravitational force. And so Saturn is an edifice. So Saturn is a huge rock edifice. And Saturn in Aquarius is his deep winter sign. So Aquarius is, Saturn in Aquarius is a huge wall of ice. It's a humongous edifice. I think a humongous edifice describes Jeff Stryker's cock just perfectly.
Exactly. So the eighth slice this week is that it shows formidable size.
That's right. Not just formidable size, but formidable edifice. And an edifice to be climbed, so to speak.
Now, we're talking about stars here on, each week, but I'm sure some of our audience wonder about their foreign astrology, foreign astro. So I was wondering, how can we get some of our audience engaged here?
Well, if you think you have what it takes to be a porn star, send me your astrological information, and I will maybe feature you in one of my podcasts. I will certainly write back and tell you yay or nay, and honey, I will be completely yay or nay. Now the thing is that there are a lot of people doing porn who shouldn't. All right, and a lot of people who are in porn, especially right now. I think everybody right now knows that the state of gay porn that is pretty fucked up. So there are a lot of people who are in porn shouldn't be, but you shouldn't necessarily be one of them. So contact me at whatmakesapornstar@gmail.com, and what I need is your date of birth, and most importantly, your time of birth. Things, and they work. And I think that you have what it takes. I will definitely say so. But I think you don't. I may actually just give you a recommendation for another business.
Nice. Well, this has been great. I love talking about astrology and learning about the whole organization of it all. And I'm doing it talking about, somebody whose work I've really enjoyed in my life. So with that, I look forward to next week. Who are we going to be featuring next week?
Next week will be Al Parker, and 2 weeks from now, if we're lucky, will be Cliff Jensen.
Nice. Well, thanks again, Porn Astro.
Thank you.
See you in the stars.
Bye. See you in the stars.